Your emergency.
Ma'am, I'm fishing in Whiskey Bay, and I just found a dead body. It's floating right now. It's caught in between branches.
I was fishing in Whiskey Bay when we spotted her, tangled and silent. We had no idea who she was or how she ended up there. Then a child's simple words cracked everything open. Where was your mom? Questions multiplied. Was she alone, or did someone bring her here? A whisper of confession, a frightened gasp, and a chilling detail that turned suspicion into horror.
I rolled about it, I could see her face and neck. It was unbelievably bruised, black, blue, green, and I knew that, I said, uh-oh, this was not a classical drowning. His body was dead before it hit the water.
What secret did that 5-year-old reveal? Stay with me. The truth is darker than you can imagine. Watch till end.
When we came upon her body, and you knew that she didn't make it there on her own. She was completely unclothed. We had no idea where she came from, but we did know she came from on top of that bridge.
On the morning of April 23, 2016, a fisherman made a horrifying discovery in Whiskey Bay, Louisiana. Floating near the branches was the body of a young woman, bruised and lifeless.
The first thing that we needed to do was retrieve her body from the water. It indicated that she did not put herself in that body of water, and we were looking at a homicide. She had been the victim of somebody else's devilish ways.
Her face and neck were covered in dark marks, proof that this was no drowning. She had been dead before entering the water. Completely unclothed and partially submerged, it was clear she hadn't ended up there on her own. The scene spoke of violence, the kind driven by rage. Investigators quickly realized they were dealing with a homicide. Fingerprints were taken and sent to the Louisiana State Police Crime Lab, the only hope of finding out who she was.
So we got lucky. It was late that night. I want to say it was about 11 o'clock that night, I think. The Louisiana State Police Crime Lab called and said, hey, we got an ID on her. She did have a small rap. There was a possession of marijuana. And they said her name is Elizabeth Ferrell, and she lives in Humble, Texas.
Late that night, confirmation arrived. The victim was 28-year-old Elizabeth Ferrell from Humble, Texas, a wife and mother of 2 young children, just 5 and 1 years old. The autopsy revealed the devastating truth. Elizabeth had died from strangulation and severe blunt force trauma to her neck, chest, and head.
Her ultimate cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation and blunt force trauma around her neck and chest area, as well as her head. Based on the injuries that I observed, you could tell that someone had a lot of rage. It just looked to me to be something personal.
The injuries showed signs of intense anger, suggesting the attack was deeply personal. What once seemed like a random tragedy was now clearly a story of violence, heartbreak, and unimaginable cruelty. When news of Elizabeth Ferrell's death reached investigators, their focus immediately turned to her husband, Jonathan Alley. Something about him didn't sit right from the beginning. When told about his wife's death, his reaction was strangely detached. There was no shock, no breakdown, just confusion about why she was in Louisiana at all.
You know Elizabeth Ferrell. Said, that's the mother of my children. So, well, look, we have found her here in our parish in Louisiana, and I hate to tell you, but she is deceased. I think his words to me was, where? I said, Louisiana. Well, what is she doing over there? You know, like, that's why I'm calling you.
His unsettling calmness raised immediate suspicion. It wasn't the reaction anyone would expect from a man who had just lost the mother of his children. As detectives began digging into Elizabeth's past, they learned that she and Jonathan had moved to New Orleans in 2009 to start a new life together. Their first daughter, Rowan, was born in 2010, followed by Autumn in 2013.
It was just absolutely glowing. You've never seen someone happier. It was one of the highlights of my entire life. Liz just loved being a mother. Having her family was everything.
Friends described Jonathan as ecstatic when their children were born, and Elizabeth as a devoted mother who found joy in her family.
They were strained because one of the last times I got to hang out with Liz, she spent time complaining about the way his grandmother was treating her. She didn't seem to want Liz there anyway.
But behind the smiles, financial troubles were slowly tearing their lives apart. Eventually, the couple and their 2 daughters moved in with Jonathan's grandmother, Gail, and that's when things began to unravel.
I could definitely tell you that Liz felt trapped. She lived with Jonathan, the babies, and Gail. She said his grandmother didn't like her.
Life in that house was far from peaceful. Elizabeth confided in friends that Gail treated her poorly and made her feel unwelcome. The tension in the home left her feeling trapped and isolated. Detectives, now aware of this strained living situation, decided to question both Jonathan and his grandmother to get a clearer picture of what had been happening inside those walls. When Jonathan came in for questioning, he appeared exhausted and disheveled, claiming he hadn't slept in days.
My first impression of Jonathan, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Nothing out of the ordinary from what someone who would lose a loved one should look like, but he appeared to be very disheveled.
He said that the last time he saw Elizabeth was on April 21st, 2016, 2 days before her body was found. According to him, she vanished while he was out trying to get money for bills. He claimed he had pawned an item and gone to the bank, and when he returned, she was gone.
He said that he went to get some money to try to pay the bills. One of the means of getting money was he went to a pawn shop, pawned an item, and then went to the bank to cash a check. Once he got back, Elizabeth was just gone.
He insisted that she had disappeared before and that he hadn't filed a missing persons report because he believed she would come back. Detectives, however, couldn't shake their doubts.
The vibe that I got was that they all tolerated each other in the house. They were just cohabitating, not real family-oriented or anything like that.
Something about his calmness didn't match the story he was telling. They decided to question Gail next, hoping to find any inconsistencies or clues.
I was a little taken back by the fact that homicide detectives were knocking on her door. She was very stonewallish and dry about describing Elizabeth to us.
Gail seemed surprised by the visit, but gave little away. She claimed she had been camping during the days surrounding Elizabeth's disappearance, and records from the campground confirmed her story.
When we first talked to Gail, we asked her where she was in the last 3 days. Gail told us that she was at a campground.
We found the name of this place, and I spoke to management over there, and they said, yes, she was there.
So we didn't think that she had anything to do with Elizabeth.
A search of her house revealed nothing suspicious. No signs of a struggle, no missing personal items, and no physical evidence linking her to the crime.
I did not get any indication that there was any signs of a struggle in the house. I didn't find any evidence of where Elizabeth's cell phone was or where Elizabeth's gaming device was or anything.
With no solid leads inside the home, detectives turned to the people who knew Elizabeth best. Her co-workers described her as a kind, hard-working woman who often showed up with bruises and marks she tried to hide. One of them, her close friend Shannon, revealed heartbreaking details about Elizabeth's private life. She confided that Jonathan had a violent temper and that the abuse had been going on for years.
We were very helpfully provided information about Shannon Ferries. It appeared Elizabeth confided in her about her life and how things was at home.
Elizabeth had once found him convulsing from synthetic drug use, and on another occasion he struck her in the face while wearing a cast, leaving her with severe injuries.
One occasion she told me specifically she found him on the floor, convulsing, I guess, and she stopped it. But at one point in time, he was doing some kind of job and he hurt his hand and had a cast on his hand, and he hit her in the face with it. She had a black eye and it busted both lips and almost busted out 2 front teeth.
Despite repeated incidents, Elizabeth refused to press charges, terrified of what might happen if she did.
After that happened, she actually point blank told him that basically they were over. She wasn't going to, what husbands and wives do. There was one from Oklahoma, one from Louisiana, and the most recent one was actually up in New Jersey. She pretty much met the one from Oklahoma here in Houston.
But Shannon's revelations didn't end there. She told investigators that after one violent episode, Elizabeth had decided to end her marriage. She had met several men online through gaming, one of whom, Jason Swat from Oklahoma, became emotionally close to her.
She never talked to me about him at all.
She didn't say anything about being intimate with him?
Not with him. The only one I know of that she was ever intimate with was, the Oklahoma guy, yes. She did say they had one that Monday that they were together. It was a wonderful day, and yes, she was intimate with him because she was feeling much relief after.
What started as friendly online conversations evolved into something deeper. The two eventually met in person when Jason traveled from Oklahoma to see her. Elizabeth told her friend that their meeting was a happy one, and that she felt a sense of relief afterward, as if she had finally broken free from the darkness surrounding her marriage. This new information opened an entirely new angle in the case. Elizabeth's growing connection with a man she met online raised questions about whether her affair could have triggered jealousy or rage.
Meeting with individuals who you meet online in person is risky behavior.
The internet could be a very dangerous thing. Gaming could be a very dangerous thing. You know, you see it in the news every day. You know, these predators. She's gaming. She's on the internet. People, she has no clue who they are. This guy, he could have been a serial killer from New York. Could have been anybody.
Detectives couldn't ignore the risk that meeting strangers through gaming might have exposed her to danger. Whether her death was connected to her troubled marriage or her secret online relationship, one thing was clear. Elizabeth's life had been a tangled web of control, abuse, and desperate attempts to escape. And now, someone had made sure she would never escape again.
I learned that she had formed a relationship with Jason Sweat, who had traveled across state lines to meet her.
They transferred him into my cell phone. He'd said that he heard about Elizabeth's body being found. I asked him, what could you tell me about her, and what was your relationship to her?
As investigators pieced together the final days of Elizabeth Ferrell's life, a new name surfaced. Jason Swat, a man she had met online through gaming.
Mr. Sweat identified that he had not spoken to Elizabeth in a few days. She had mentioned that her phone was going to be cut off, and she wasn't sure when she was going to have service again. That was the last time he had heard from her.
Elizabeth's friend Shannon had already mentioned him, describing how the two had grown close even before meeting in person. To detectives, Jason immediately became a person of interest. Their connection had been romantic, and he had even traveled across state lines to see her in Humble, Texas, where they spent a night together. The relationship, though brief, was real enough to raise suspicion. When investigators contacted Jason, they approached carefully, unsure of what role he might have played. Jason admitted to having a romantic relationship with Elizabeth that began online and later became physical when they met.
What is your tie to Elizabeth? I was very careful when I was talking to him. I can't give him too much information because if he's the suspect, I need to be able to use that information against him.
Mr. Sweat told investigators that, yes, he had a romantic relationship with her, started off gaming, and he actually came into Humble, Texas, and they spent a night together in a hotel and had relations. That was very interesting, to say the least.
Mr. Sweat identified that he had not spoken to Elizabeth in a few days. She had mentioned that her phone was going to be cut off, and she wasn't sure when she was going to have service again. That was the last time he had heard from her.
He explained that their last conversation took place a few days before her death. Elizabeth had mentioned that her phone might be cut off soon, and after that she stopped responding. But when detectives checked his location, phone records, and digital activity, everything confirmed his alibi. Jason had been in Oklahoma at the time of the murder. With him cleared, attention shifted once again to the one person whose story never quite added up.
When I first interviewed Jonathan, I remember asking specifically if he had ever been to Louisiana, because if Jonathan was our suspect, the one thing we needed to do was lock him into that statement. He told us that it had been a long time since he had ever been to Louisiana.
Jonathan, Elizabeth's husband. From the very beginning, Jonathan's behavior had troubled detectives.
That reason? No. I was the first person to take her to New Orleans. Let me ask you another question. Have you ever hit her? Yeah. One time. That was the night I stopped drinking.
When asked if he had been to Louisiana, he claimed it had been years since his last visit. He admitted to hitting Elizabeth once, but insisted he had stopped afterward. Still, his tone, body language, and vague answers made investigators increasingly certain that he was hiding something.
The facts remain. I didn't do it. I didn't do this. Who did it? I don't know.
As evidence began to build against him, detectives decided it was time to act. Jonathan was arrested and taken into custody. During his brief interaction with officers, he invoked his right to an attorney, refusing to answer any further questions. But investigators weren't done searching for the truth.
That's Detective Leslie Bradford. I'm sure in the affidavits and stuff you might have read her name before. Mm-hmm. Right? Major Ronnie Abaz, I major over all the criminal investigations division. Any detective that works for Evansville Parish Sheriff's Office, he's over. He does administration.
But I also intend to exercise my constitutional right for a lawyer.
Okay.
Can you sign it, please?
Certainly.
They knew there was one witness who might have seen or heard something, someone too young to realize the importance of what she knew.
What day you call that? That's okay. All right. I see where you checked off here that you do not want to speak to us.
Correct.
Okay. 610?
Yes, sir. It's 1810.
That person was Jonathan and Elizabeth's 5-year-old daughter, Rowan. The detectives decided to have her interviewed by trained child specialists at the Children's Assessment Center in Harris County.
When the idea came up to have Rowan interviewed, I thought it was going to be a wonderful idea. A child of that age is the most purest person you can interview if it's done correctly. But it's not always as sweet as you think.
It was a delicate process designed to help children speak freely in a safe, non-threatening environment. At first, the session seemed simple, even playful.
I've got a couple colors. What color would you like to use? I've got red. I think the red's getting a little hard though. Got green. I had a purple.
I want all of them.
Oh, you want all of them? Okay.
Because I can lay in my bunk bed by myself.
Rowan was encouraged to color and talk casually while being gently guided toward memories of her family. Slowly, her innocent words began to paint a chilling picture.
Have you had a birthday?
No.
All right.
Yeah. I was very happy on my 4th and 5th birthday.
She mentioned that her father thought her mother wanted to spend more time with a man named Brad.
So loud that everybody in Humble could hear me when my mother died.
Okay. I wasn't there, okay?
No, I don't quite remember.
Possibly confusing names, but clearly referencing Elizabeth's secret relationship. Her words hinted at jealousy, anger, and tension inside the home.
Well, you see, Daddy thought that Mommy always wanted to spend more time with her boyfriend named Brad, and he thought Mommy never wanted to spend time with him.
Mm-hmm.
Then, the conversation took a darker turn. Rowan described being in the car with her father and baby sister for a long drive, about 3 hours. It was nighttime.
And we were in the car for 3 hours.
And where was your sister?
She was just in her bouncer, you know. It was one errand and we couldn't find our way home, so we, you know.
The car stopped in the middle of the road and her father got out to grab something from the back.
Look, it's the dolphin I made just like yours. I made the baby cry a little while later, and they got out of the car for a little while, and then they got back at the car.
She couldn't see what it was, only that it was dark and quiet outside. She and her sister stayed in their car seats while he moved around outside the vehicle.
When you got things out of the back of the car, where were you?
I was still in my car seat. Me and Autumn was still in our car seats.
And where was the car parked at?
At the middle of the road.
Without realizing it, the little girl had just described the moment her father disposed of her mother's body.
Did you see, what it looked like?
No.
No? Okay. And when he gets out of the car, was it light or dark out?
Dark.
Oh, it was dark. Okay. Were there any, what were you able to see outside?
Bunch of places.
When he stopped in the middle of the road, what did you see around you?
Investigators were horrified. The thought of Jonathan driving for hours with his 2 daughters in the back seat, his wife's lifeless body in the trunk, was almost unbearable. They immediately began verifying the child's account by reviewing surveillance footage along possible routes between Texas and Louisiana. Their search paid off. Detectives located video from a traffic camera on Interstate 10 near Whiskey Bay, the same area where Elizabeth's body had been found. The footage showed a small gray 2015 Nissan Versa, identical to Jonathan's car, passing by late at night on April 21st, 2016.
We had an officer named Detective Jeremy Sanchez, and he deals with a lot of our video surveillance and things like that.
A distinctive American flag sticker on the rear window confirmed it was his vehicle. The license plate matched the registration to his address in Humble, Texas.
License plate matches also. It comes back to the address in Humble, Texas. So that vehicle just didn't pop up on that camera without being driven there.
That single detail, one small sticker, tied everything together. Jonathan had lied about never traveling to Louisiana, lied about not knowing what happened to his wife, and lied about her sudden disappearance. With the footage, the child's account, and the timeline aligned, detectives finally understood the truth. Elizabeth hadn't simply vanished. She had been driven to her death by the very person who was supposed to love and protect her.
The jail informant had been assigned to the same day room with Jonathan Ali.
Started talking to him and asking him, why are you there? He said, yeah, I'll tell you, he's real soft-spoken. He's a real soft, calm, quiet kid.
The exact spot where Elizabeth's body was found would soon become the center of a horrifying truth. As the evidence against Jonathan Ali continued to build, it became impossible for him to maintain his innocence. But the investigation took an unexpected and chilling turn when, on May 18, 2016, an inmate in Harris County Jail came forward with a disturbing story, one that would finally expose what really happened. The inmate claimed that Jonathan had confessed to him in great detail. They'd been housed in the same day room, and over time, Jonathan opened up. What began as a casual conversation soon turned into a haunting confession. Jonathan revealed that his marriage had been falling apart. He had grown suspicious of Elizabeth and one day decided to look through her phone. What he found inside shattered him. Explicit text messages with another man. Consumed by rage and betrayal, Jonathan said he completely lost control. According to his confession, Elizabeth had just stepped out of the shower when he confronted her. In a fit of blind anger, he put her in a chokehold and began to squeeze. He described holding her tighter and tighter until she fell to the floor and stopped breathing. But even then, he didn't stop.
I squeezed so tight, I squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until there was no more. He thinks he's already killed her. Okay. He said, then this woman made a she's trying to come back. She's gasping for air. He said he runs over there and he takes his foot and he jumps up and he stomps it on her throat. He don't know what to do, so he stomped on her throat to try to kill her.
When he realized she might still be alive, he stomped on her throat repeatedly until there was no sign of life left. It was a brutal and merciless attack, one that matched the autopsy findings exactly. Investigators knew this information hadn't been made public, which meant only the killer himself could have described it in such detail. But the inmate's account didn't end there.
He said he had sex with this body after he killed her.
Oh my God. To anybody to do that, that's an animal. You don't deserve to breathe.
Jonathan had revealed something even more disturbing, something that shocked even seasoned detectives. After killing Elizabeth, he hid her body inside a large Christmas tree bag and dumped it in the water, believing that would be enough to erase his crime. It was a horrific act that showed just how far he was willing to go to cover up what he had done. The investigation soon uncovered even more evidence of guilt. Detectives found that, around the same time Elizabeth disappeared, Jonathan had pawned several of her belongings, including the Xbox he once claimed she had taken. He had also tried to convince police that Elizabeth often left home without warning, pretending to be a worried husband when in truth he was hiding a dark secret. Neighbors later reported hearing heated arguments between the couple just days before she vanished. The picture became clear. Jonathan's life was spiraling out of control. He was drowning in debt, struggling to care for 2 young daughters, and saw Elizabeth's life insurance policy as a way out. What detectives saw wasn't a man overcome by grief, but someone capable of cold and calculated cruelty. Jonathan was eventually extradited to Louisiana, where he faced trial in March 2019, but instead of letting the evidence be laid out in court, he chose to take a plea deal. He admitted to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 35 years in prison. For many, especially Elizabeth's family, it felt like a shockingly light punishment for such a horrific act.
He pled guilty to the charge of second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 35 years in prison. 35 is a long time, but not for murder. Yeah, murder, you should never see the daylight again. To me, it's a sweetheart deal.
To them, 35 years could never compare to the lifetime of pain he caused. Adding to the heartbreak, Jonathan's grandmother, who had long disapproved of Elizabeth, was granted custody of the couple's 2 daughters. It was a bitter ending to an already devastating story. In a case filled with secrets, betrayal, and unimaginable violence, it was ultimately the voices around Jonathan, from his own child to an inmate's shocking revelation, that exposed the truth. Our hearts go out to Elizabeth's family, who continue to live with the pain of her loss. If you found this story meaningful, let us know your thoughts in the comments and share which case you'd like us to cover next. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more true stories that matter. Until next time, stay curious.